Well, is Reminiscence a thought-provoking sci-fi vision, or did it provoke some unwanted feelings as I watched it? Stick around and hear my thoughts. I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of Reminiscence. The synopsis on IMDb reads, Nick Bannister, a private investigator of the mind, navigates the alluring world of the past when his life is changed by new client May. A simple case becomes an obsession after she disappears, and he fights to learn the truth about her. Okay, so what is this thing? At first I thought it was a sci-fi drama, but then I realized, oh no, okay, this is sci-fi noir. It's like he's not a detective, but it's like that noir detective mystery private investigator kind of thing in a sci-fi setting. After war and global warming have altered human life, people live lives at night in order to escape the now much hotter days, while also using tech to relive memories in full simulation to escape the depressing realities of the world, one of which is the fact that the coastal cities are largely flooded. So the setting is possibly the coolest part to me. The coastal cities, as I said, are partially flooded, yet people are still living in the ruins of like half-flooded buildings, taking boats from place to place, or walking through ankle-deep water in the more shallow and less flooded areas. The writing uses noir styling to tell the story with lots of internal monologues, voiceover stuff going on from Hugh Jackman, who plays Nick, and that's going on frequently throughout. But it also seems from an older time in a less satisfying way to me, namely its emphasis on dialogue that felt very plot functional and sometimes overly expositional. Characters will say things out loud that their performance or the moment itself made pretty obvious to me already. I'm like, you don't need to say that. I mean, you could say something else and communicate that with subtext or just react, visibly. I also really felt like May, and consequently her romance with Nick, were two-dimensional at the beginning. They seemed to be a couple based on almost nothing more than sexual attraction. And yet through Nick, we are supposed to feel like this relationship was very special and meant a lot to him. Uncovering the truth of who May really is was not dramatically compelling or satisfying to me because there was so little of who we're supposed to think she is presented at the beginning. So when those moments are supposed to come of, oh, she's not who I thought I would. Who did you think she was? I mean, she was, kind of coming on and being very sexual and stuff, and then you guys ended up sleeping together, and then we have some montages of you guys being together, and and then she disappears, and the hunt is on. Who was she that you were so shocked to discover these alternate details about her? The story is mostly about Nick following one lead to the next as details slowly get filled in, or as one lead leads to something that is like, okay, so I guess it's not this, it's this, But I just wasn't interested in the mystery because I felt like the characters were mostly just plot constructs rather than people. And I really want to and often need to be invested in characters in order for any kind of story to really pull me in and have me invested. The reveals themselves about May and about plot, well, May in particular, I don't want to necessarily say plot elements, but May in particular, those reveals felt telegraphed beforehand, so that as Nick learned things about May, I felt like asking, why is this a surprise to you after what the guy in the last scene just said? He just said this thing about her, and now you're coming to this scene and kind of seeing it for yourself and going, oh my gosh, with, getting off of that and coming to the sci-fi concept for a second, you might think that the ability to relive memories through like a full-blown mental simulation would involve something that really pulls you in with reality-bending gimmicks and surprise moments and stuff, questioning of reality, that sort of thing. But there weren't near as many of those moments as I would have liked. They weren't absent from the movie; they were there, but there weren't near as many as I would have liked. Especially since I wasn't connecting to the characters, I would have liked something that was more mind-bendy and kind of maybe intellectually challenging or something. However, without spoiling the ending at all, I'll say that they did something creative with the concept that also was dramatically satisfying, so that in the execution of the final scene, I did find myself caring about the characters and enjoying the sci-fi concept both at the same time. As far as the cast goes, Hugh Jackman is the most recognizable face, with two female supporting performers that you'll likely say to yourself, oh, I've seen her in such and such, or I've seen her in something, but I can't quite figure out what it is. They all gave what I thought were solid performances, but now and then the dialogue they spoke still took me out of the story despite their efforts. Jackman in particular elevated his material, I thought, especially in the climactic emotional scene, but for most of the movie, even these solid performers couldn't connect me to their characters as they were written. As far as the visuals go, it's not an action-y movie. There's not a bunch of stunts and stuff like that. There is some fighting and some things here and there that kind of like create spikes in the dramatic tension, I suppose. The most impressive visuals to me, though, were the flooded sets and the streets. I mean, again, the world to me stands out as the most interesting thing about this story. The CG did its job, but also fell short for me here and there, especially when creating simulated landscapes or backgrounds. There's a opening moment where they're kind of introducing the world, and they're using, kind of what is supposed to be like a camera on a helicopter that's bringing you from the sky down into the city, swooping through the city streets and stuff, but it's all CG created, as many movies will do that kind of shot these days. But the CG just didn't feel as real as I've seen done in some other movies. And then also now and then there would be backgrounds that would look just a little bit green screeny to me. But again, I have cursed eyes that seem to spot CGI in movies more than some other folks do. So you can take that with a grain of salt if that's not the case for you. As far as themes, is there anything of moral or philosophical or spiritual significance going on in the themes of this thing that might trigger some worthwhile thought or conversation? At first I thought the strongest worldview statement that I would kind of take away that would leave an impression on me would be related somehow to what I assume are the liberal politics of the writer. The premise hangs heavily on the subject of global warming, which as a topic tends to be more associated with the left, and evil corporations are a major part of the premise, which also is associated with the left. But very soon those elements faded into the backdrop that they really were. Instead, I was struck by how the movie equally affirms and wants us to feel good about people moving on with their lives, recovering from past regrets or past things that are haunting them and moving on with their lives. So I would say that's a good and healthy thing if you're recovering from those hurts in the right way. But they also at the same time wanted to treat as equally valid living in the past, being dissatisfied with your life, and then as a result, just getting lost in memories of the past. Viewers are expected to feel like a person living out their days entirely in a simulated reality until they die is a good and happy thing. But I just cannot get behind that. With the prominence of social media, the increased time that we tend to give to artificial video game worlds, and with VR undoubtedly something that will be commonplace on the horizon, our ability to communicate in clear and healthy ways and to function in relationship with each other is being encouraged to atrophy as all these things are being placed in front of us as cool things that are being marketed to us that we should be a part of. And when in fact all of those things are artificial or more shallow forms of relationship that may feel safer in some ways but have far less potential depth, and in some cases cannot even be called real at all, no matter how real they may feel to us. This may be linked in some ways to a naturalistic or an atheistic worldview. I mean, I can't know where the writer is coming from, but on a naturalistic worldview, reality is really just whatever we feel. There's no objective reality. It doesn't even matter what is real, as long as if we feel something and that feels real to us, if our sense organs are being stimulated in a way that is indistinguishable from what we would call reality, then that simulation, if it's a perfectly convincing simulation, can be considered just as real, or at least just as valuable and valid, because there's no objective value. There's no objective worth to things. And so it may be coming from that kind of place. I don't know. I mean, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the whole AI argument of once AI can completely and perfectly fool us, then shouldn't we treat them as just as much persons as we are, since we can't tell the difference? But it's not our perception that determines reality. I just don't hold to that view, and I mean that's not the biblical worldview either. So, but that seems to be in a way what is being kind of promoted. Maybe inadvertently. I don't want to say that it's an intended message. I kind of doubt it's an intended message, but that is kind of a worldview thing you have to accept or suspend your disbelief to embrace in order to feel the dramatic elements and the emotional elements in the way that you're intended to feel them in this movie. So anyway, I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Peter, skip this one. It's just not your kind of movie. Characterization is too high a priority for you to want to put up with its relative absence here, especially since they also don't lean very hard into other things that might pull you in, like a mind-bending sci-fi concept or a really interesting visual style. So this is just not something that you're going to enjoy. It's rated PG-13 for strong violence, drug material throughout, sexual content, and some strong language. And those are all my thoughts for now on Reminiscence. I would love to get your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, and click that bell to stay connected. I want to thank the Spirit Blade Insiders for making this review possible. You can get info about the benefits of being an insider at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. Then I hope you'll check out our podcast and stay connected to all Christian Geek Central content over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth.
christiangeekcentral.com